School PR professionals spend a week or two each year networking, if they're lucky. We pour into this professional development, and the conversations drive us in our work. Collaboration is one of the best parts of our job, but then we go back to our daily work and the buzz of bright conversations and innovation starts to wear off.
Welcome to School PR Happy Hour. We seek to create a shared space of collaboration and an opportunity to continue those conversations long after the closing sessions of our state and national conferences.
We are a community of communicators that lean on each other in hard times and learn from each other regularly.
This podcast is about just that, getting to know each other better and sharing our passions about furthering education, one story at a time. Welcome to episode 3 of School PR Happy Hour. Now, before we jump into this episode, Aaron and I wanted to take a second to say thank you. The response to this podcast has been bigger than we expected, and we appreciate all the kind words, and yes, even the suggestions to make it better. We started this project because the conversations we were having needed to continue after our conferences or annual meetings. And now we get to see and hear about connections being made because of the first few episodes of this podcast, and that has really encouraged us to keep going. So again, thank you. We appreciate each and every one of you. Today's episode has been one that I've been very excited about from the time I booked it. For many of the newer faces in school PR, an APR may seem like something down the road or later in your career. Tracy Jentz, who you will hear was someone on my Inspira bucket list, just finished her journey to APR. Here is her story about that journey. I hope you enjoy it. All right, so today we have Tracy Jentz on with us. Tracy, thank you so much for coming on School PR Happy Hour today and being willing to chat with me a little bit.
Well, thanks for the invitation.
Awesome. Me and Tracy know each other from K-12 PR chat, and then last year at Inspira 2018 was my first year there, and I told her she was on my bucket list of people I had to meet. I don't know if you remember what you said to me when I said that to you.
I do not.
You said, "Hold on, I need to text my mom and tell her I was on somebody's bucket list."
That sounds about right. She's my biggest fan.
Today, we are going to talk a little bit about something I was excited to be in the room for whenever you got pinned at Inspira with your APR, your Accreditation in Public Relations. And I just want to kind of talk about that process and what you went through over the last year to get to that point. So before we dive, let's just tell me a little bit about your current district and kind of your path to the school PR world and just kind of your background.
Sure. Well, I am the Communications and Community Engagement Coordinator for Grand Forks Public Schools. Grand Forks is a community of about 60,000 people. We're in the northeast corner of North Dakota, right across the North Dakota-Minnesota line. Our school system, we actually have 2 school districts. We have all of the public schools within the city of Grand Forks, but we're also blessed to have an Air Force base about 14 miles west of Grand Forks. And we have a combined elementary and middle school out there. So their school district is part of our school system as well. We have about 7,300 students, 1,600 full and part-time staff. I think I had said I had been in this role for 6.5 years. I came to Grand Forks in the fall of, seems like so long ago, 2003 for college, and I've pretty much been here since. I had such a great educational experience at the University of North Dakota, had a lot of support from the community, had a variety of different jobs throughout my college experience, and kept thinking this is a great place to find a job and grow some roots and kind of give back to the community that's given me a lot. And so when this job opened about 7 years ago, I thought this would be perfect. It uses my background in public relations and sociology and would be a way to stay in the Grand Forks area.
What really motivated you to just go after your APR and chase after those 3 letters that a lot of us want after our name on our Twitter bio?
You have made it. Once you get those letters behind your name, whether you do it right after the exam or when the letter comes. For me in North Dakota, I don't see a lot of APRs. I don't really know of anybody that I've stayed in touch with in any regard after college that's gone through the process. And so it really wasn't high on my visibility list until I joined Inspira. And then um, seeing the articles, talking to different people, looking for mentors and networking. There's just more and more individuals that have gone through this process. And as you said, have those 3 letters after their name. And NSPRA has done a great job partnering with PRSA, the Public Relations Society of America, through who holds the APR, and kind of advertising it and sharing it with members, and having a number of members who are um, mentors and share information with the school PR pros about that. And so I think the visibility was starting to be there. A lot of people that I really respect, your boss, Julie Phantom, APR being one of them, which is so weird too. I never quite know. You hear people say Tracy Jentz, APR, or Josh Sauer, APR. I never know if you should say it after it or not. But I know they do it a lot at NSPRA. But
Well, I will say it after your name every time I see you from now on. Every time I see you, I'm just be like, "Hello, Tracy Jentz, APR. How are you?"
okay, K-12 PR cheese. I think I did that right. Yeah.
Yes.
So it was just that heightened visibility, reading those articles, and then wanting to learn more about, well, what is this APR process? North Dakota doesn't have a SPRA chapter. And so Minnesota very kindly lets me kind of tag along with them. And a few years ago, they did a cohort and a number of webinars. And so I participated in those and kind of learned a little bit more about what the process would be like, and then decided I needed to wait a little bit. I had met all the requirements. They suggest you should be in PR for 5 years and be ready to do a plan and whatnot. But I didn't feel like I was quite ready, and that I would have a plan, that I wanted to have something that was going to benefit the school system. And I really couldn't come up with anything at that point. And then I was encouraged by many people at NSPRA. There's a 2-day pre-session. Sean McKillop and Naomi Hunter lead that now, to go out early and do that pre-session. So I did that about a year ago, and that was kind of the precipice for everything. I had done that with 2 of my closest friends and colleagues, Josh Sauer and Kathy Kajigian. And we kind of looked at each other and was like, all right, let's do this. And so didn't have a formal study group, or didn't, I know a lot of people do the webinar through, I believe it's PRSA and the online cohort. And, there's a variety of options for you, but I just kind of decided, I've always been a self-starter and kind of like to go at my own pace. So we all applied around the same time, sometime in August, so about a year ago. We're accepted, and then that's when the clock starts. You have 12 months from when you're accepted to kind of go through all the criteria to work towards your APR.
So over the last month or so, we've seen or 2 months, I guess, since NSPRA wrapped up, we've seen a lot of our colleagues and friends on social media making the claim, "Hey, here we go. I've got a year. My clock has started." What advice would you give to those people that are, a week, a month, maybe 6 weeks into this process, heading towards the stage at NSPRA or at their state conference to be pinned in front of their colleagues and friends?
Well, it's a great question, and it's so different for everybody, because some people want to start the process once their communications plan's done and they've already started studying. For me, I wanted to start it and get accepted and then start the process, because to me then it was like I have a definitive amount of time that I need to get this done. So it kind of depends on which way you work best under pressure or you don't. The best way to do that, but for me, was to apply, because I had thought, okay, we're going to be looking towards doing a referendum here in Grand Forks, and we have not done one for a very long time. We had an unlimited mill levy up until a few years ago, when that was voted away by our legislature. And so to be able to have a higher operating budget, we would need to go to the voters. And I thought that that's what I was going to be doing my project on. So that's when I felt comfortable on applying. Was accepted, and maybe 6 weeks after that, our school board decided, you know what, let's pump the brakes. Let's do this a little bit slower, a little bit more methodical, which I think was the absolute right thing to do. But of course, I had a few moments of panic, thinking, I've paid for this, I've started this process, and what am I going to do? And so my big advice would be to just don't let it overwhelm you. You just take everything step by step. And I'm one of those people who doesn't read the recipe beforehand. And so those lovely church cookbooks that halfway through will introduce an ingredient that wasn't at the top, or will say, oh, you should have combined your dry ingredients and your wet ingredients, later on or whatnot. That always catches me by surprise. So I knew I had to be a little bit more thoughtful about how I did this. Um, so it's picking that place to start and finding a plan that you feel comfortable with, and then knowing if it doesn't work out, you can punt and figure out something else, which is what I did. Our school system, we went through a major loss, losing 3 students about 15 months ago. And so that was kind of a precipice for me, thinking I really need to do something for emergency communications, because watching people's reactions during that time has stuck with me, and I think about it every day. And so for me, then it was kind of thinking, all right, I'm going to make this switch and I'm going to do that, and then breaking it down to bite-sized pieces. I was hoping I would have some time during the workday to work on it, especially since it was a project that was for the school system. As we all know, whether you're a one-person office like I am or not, um, and kind of as you alluded to, the school year comes and it just hits you fast. And so for me, I found the best way, and to kind of take the stress level of it down, was just to work on nights and weekends. And so that's what I did starting right after the holidays, was I worked on it every weekend with the exception of one. And whether that was researching, writing, kind of doing some analysis of some qualitative or quantitative data, was just kept working towards it. And then when I felt comfortable, was reaching out to NSPRA and then getting that panel presentation scheduled.
So you mentioned the panel presentation, and I've talked to a couple people that have recently gone through this process. For you, what was more, I don't know if nerve-wracking or daunting is the right word? Was it more of the panel presentation, or was it I mean, I know you've said numerous times you're a big research fan and you love getting
Yeah,
into the weeds of research. So like, what did you see as kind of the part of this process that was the most challenging? And talk a little bit about the panel presentation and what that looks like.
sure. Well, for me, the nerve-wracking thing was going to be the panel presentation. My background, I have a bachelor's degree in PR, communication, and my master's degree is in sociology, the scientific study of human interaction. And then I had a minor or cognate with that, and it was in research. And so I was very comfortable when you kind of go through the APR guide, which I think is one of the first steps anybody should do when they're thinking about this, is kind of page through that guide. I was very familiar with a lot of those those terms and the thought behind it. But what was going to be difficult for me was just not to do just that, because that's kind of how I was taught in college. That's what my focus has been with so much of the other work that I've done, that I also needed to talk about the rest of the RPI, the planning, implementation, and evaluation. And then I had thought, when we talk about that 4-step process and you think about what your goals, objectives, strategies, and tactics are, I realized it was a few days after I had submitted the questionnaire. So there's a questionnaire that you need to respond to. It has 2 parts, and that's sent to your panel in advance. And that kind of helps them get to know you. It asks questions about your current position, kind of how you work with your colleagues, different projects that you've worked on, time management and whatnot. um, that I still had it wrong in my head between goals and objectives. Because in our school system, they always talk about SMART goals, that specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, time bound, SMART. And it's not SMART goals. The objectives are what's supposed to be SMART. They're supposed to define what you're trying to change, how you're going to try to change it, and in what time frame. And so even after I submitted that, I thought, wow, I still kind of did this wrong. So that was stressful for me. And then, of course, doing a plan on emergency communications, Rick Kaufman, who is, kind of everybody's go-to, and rightfully so, for emergency communications, he is a MINSPRA member. And the whole time I was doing this, and I referenced him in my advanced document, that panel questionnaire, I've referenced him multiple times in that emergency communications plan. I thought, Rick's going to be in the room. I just kept kind of having this feeling. My chair is Barb Nickel. She's one of the NSPRA frontrunners this year. And I thought, yep, I'm going to have an all-star panel, and they're not going to make this easy, which they shouldn't. And I wouldn't want that. But I thought this is going to be at least 2 hours of, really good discussion, in-depth analysis. And that's what it was. And so for me, kind of even during the panel and after, I didn't even know what to think. I explained, okay, there's things in my questionnaire I would change now, having some more time to think about it. And we had great discussion. But when I left, I thought, if they pass me, it's great. And if they don't, I have things that I've learned that I can incorporate into it. And I had trouble reading, kind of into it. So for me, that was difficult because when you do this at NSPRA, if you do your panel presentation, they'll tell you, not right away, they have to discuss and kind of do the scoring rubric. That's the one time they can tell you that quickly. Every other time you're waiting for the letter from PRSA to find out if you advance to the exam or not. And so I haven't, really experienced anything like that in quite a while because we're more of that immediate society and find out things rather quickly. So that was kind of, for me, the tense part of that. And then you had referenced my mom earlier. When I went through my writing my thesis for my master's and did my defense, my family came up, my brother, my sister, and my dad, but my mom wasn't able to. She had to work that day. So I had found out the letter from PRSA was coming, and she drove 2 hours to Grand Forks because I had told her when I get that, I'm going to wait so you can open it. And so I had told her that the letter's coming, so I'll see you later this week and you can open it then. And she drove up. She didn't tell me, but she drove up that morning. So when it got here, she could open it right away. So she's best mom. So just kind of that whole process, because I think she had saw me and was thinking, okay, she's kind of confident. She's been working on this plan. We hardly ever see her. She lives and breathes. I mean, I can RPI just about anything now. I can stand at the store, and kind of look at something and go, well, is this the best brand? But this one has more. What's, the price analysis on this and whatnot. So, there's that part of it, and that you can walk the walk, but then it comes time to talk the talk. And for other people, some of my close friends say, oh, no, panel presentation was great. Didn't even take the 2 hours. And so I think it varies. And, with my plan, as we talked about the emergency communications plan, it's not your typical 4-step process because you write the plan, but an emergency communications plan is only as good as every time you update it after you use it. And so it's not like, okay, these were my objectives. I launched the website or I launched, whatever, and then I measured it after. It's, okay, this happened. This is what I changed. This happened. This is what I added. And so it was going to be a little bit different than I think maybe the typical plan would be. And so that was kind of nerve-wracking as well.
So you mentioned that you went through it you had friends that signed up at the same time, but also during that time you had people who walked along with you that were already APRs or your colleagues in the industry that you lean on and learn from. Who are those people that walk through you, and just talk about, in your eyes, the importance of mentoring in our industry?
Mentoring is everything. And I think it should be everything for everyone at all times, because there's no reason to reinvent the wheel. And there are people out there who have gone through what you've gone through or something similar. I think, for those who are part of NSPRA and on NSPRA Connect, you see that every day. Somebody throwing out a question, and then you have people who've kind of gone through that or created a resource or whatnot for chiming in. And so for me, that's kind of been what I've carried with me since I started in this job, is I need to find the right people to kind of surround myself with who know what to do and will be those mentors and challenge me. Your boss, Julie Thanum, has been number one at that, really since she was NSPRA president a few years ago, and just kind of reading her articles and being able to visit with her, because she's very gracious with her time, to kind of get information from her and kind of what she's experienced in her career, because she's had a very successful school PR career. It's Leslie Bruinton, who will be the incoming NSPR president. She is also very gracious with her time. And if you ever want to have someone who gets the 4-step process and who can dive in with your goals and objectives, it's Leslie. I remember sharing my document with many people, but after Leslie read it, calling and saying, okay, let's talk through this. I've got some questions about your objectives. What are you thinking here? And really challenged me and helped me understand that, um, more so than I had before. It's Peg Mannon, who is the vice president for the North Central region of NSPRO, which I'm a member. She read through my document, the great advice she has, watching her be a vice president and balance everything in her school system and what she does for the chapter that she's affiliated with. There's so many people. Kristen Majette, who wrote 2 books on social media in school. She's always so gracious and giving with her time. And again, Sean McKillop and Naomi Hunter, who have done the NSPR prep session. They are fantastic. I don't know how Sean does what he does. He's at NSPR for about a week and he is constantly going. He's presenting about the APR. He does another session for people thinking about the APR. He's usually winning a gold medallion for amazing work he's done in his school system. There's all these people that are so fantastic in the school PR ranks. And if you reach out to them on Twitter or NSPR Connect, drop them an email, they're just so willing to listen and talk through things and walk through things with you. And that's really what's made this process maybe even 100 times better, is that going through it is amazing. And it's true what they say, it changes everything. It changes how you think and you look at something, how you write, how you read things, what you look into. But that process that you have with kind of walking through this with colleagues makes it 100 times more meaningful and valuable.
Well, just for the record, and I'll say it on the podcast, there's a small group of that I hang out with at both NSPRs that I've been to, and there are 3 people, me included, in that group that have decided that it looks like our group will be APR 2021. So it's coming. That'll give me some time to kind of prep and get my mind wrapped around it. And I know there's a couple other people that may or may not have rode scooters all over Washington D.C. with me, but we're looking at 2021. So that's our plan, and start looking at that. But for those APR hopefuls that are out there right now or looking at doing it in the future, knowing you and knowing your personality, you're always open to help.
Mm-hmm.
How would those people go about getting in contact with you and getting in touch with you and just asking those questions that they may have?
One thing that I have noticed is that we all like to hang out on Twitter. I think probably other places as well. But if you're ever looking for a school PR person, it's on Twitter. And in terms of contacting, that's probably the easiest way because it's the quickest way to find me. I'm at Jentz. And follow me, send me a message. I hate saying it this way, but our email addresses are really long. If you Google my name, our school systems communication page should be one of the first things that pops up. You can also drop me an email, and I'm happy to talk more about my process or different options that's available to you. And then also NSPRA is great at that as well, as is your state chapter. For those of you who are part of a SPRA, they might be having something come up in the fall that you might want to check with them as well. But I am happy to visit with anyone at any time about the process.
And as we do on every show, we like to end it with a question about your educational journey. So, Tracy, was there a teacher or just some moment as you were going through school that really impacted your life and set you on the course that you're on now?
For a long time, I really would have said it was college, and it's still true. Professor Frank White, he is the one who set me on my path for sociology. He was a class that was suggested to me when I was undecided, and taking his intro class was just a game changer in understanding people and the importance of that to be able to kind of do your communications job. Ended up taking all of the classes that he taught, undergraduate, and then worked as his teaching assistant in college. That was very formative. But having gone through the APR process and different questions and things that have come up over time, I realized, and I had just talked to my mom about this to make sure I had the details straight in my head. It was actually my dad's dad, my grandfather, who passed away suddenly when I was about 10 years old. But at the time, the library for the elementary school that I went to, they were looking at expanding, and they wanted some books. It was when, if you can believe this, computers were first coming on the scene, and they were more affordable, and schools were starting to purchase them, and they wanted to purchase some computers. And they went to my grandfather and kind of explained this to him, and he was a very successful small business owner and farmer. And he said, "Sure, how much do you need?" And he wrote out a check. And I think about, well, how nice that would be just to be able to do that and kind of be philanthropic that way. And that kind of set me on my path and some of the organizations I'm involved in, the work that I do. Um, but just the importance of education and how he changed so many kids' lives by the books that I read. I was one of those kids who would read a book a night when I was in later elementary into the middle school years, and having access to computers my entire educational career. It's people like that who are willing to give whatever resource they have, whether it's money, whether it's time, to help further somebody's educational career. And they had dedicated the library to him after his passing, and that's kind of the memory that I had. And I wasn't quite able to kind of place it and put two and two together. But anytime I would think kind of back to school in the elementary days, I would always think of that dedication ceremony. So I asked my mom a little bit about that. And I think that's the thing that I kept coming to through this APR process, is I'm able to do the things that I did in this process because of someone like my grandfather who invested in education, because of the Frank Whites in college of the world, because of Rick Kaufman and the work that he's done in emergency communications, the Julie Thanums, Leslie Bruintons of Anspra of the world. You really are standing on the shoulder of giants. And so for me, there's not just one person, there's kind of very distinct memories. But it's being able to build on that and hopefully set the table and be able to pass it on to the next person as they work towards their APR or work for their school system.
Well, Tracy, thank you so much for sharing that. That is such a cool story of your grandpa and how his impact, even though he wasn't an educator, he impacted your education and your career in your life as a whole, but also impacted so many others by just having a giving heart. I appreciate you coming on. We're still very early in the School PR Happy Hour podcast life adventure that we're on. So I just appreciate you coming on and having, the willing heart to help us get rolling with this thing.
Well, thanks for having me. This is the highlight for sure.
Well, there you have it, episode 3 of School PR Happy Hour. 3 things from that talk with Tracy Jentz I would like for you to think about is just remember that first off, everyone's APR journey will be different. What worked for others may not be the exact path that you should go down or the most successful path for you. Number 2 is be flexible. During that year that you're working on that APR, life will happen, things will happen. Just be willing to adapt and make the APR process work for you. Just make sure you make it work within that 1-year time frame. And then finally, find your people. As we've said in what feels like every episode of this podcast, the School PR community is a giving community and is always there for each other. Find your tribe, lean on them, learn from them, and then remind them, just like Tracy does, how much you appreciate them. That does it for episode 3. Thanks again to Tracy Jentz for coming on and sharing the journey she's been on for the last year or so. If you like the show, subscribe and review it on your favorite platform. For all of you K-12 PR chatters out there, be sure to mark down September 24th and be ready to talk podcasting in schools. We are looking forward to that conversation about an avenue we are very passionate about. My name is Justin Deering. Thank you again for listening to School PR Happy Hour. Until next time, let's try to be a little bit better every day.